Alright, we ready? Alright, take 3 and clap.
Hello, my name is Lauren Tidwell and I'm the president of E-Club. Welcome to Ebenezer Swamp. I'm here to take you guys through a guided tour to get familiar with the area and to learn about the biodiversity we have here. So if you'll follow me, we can walk on through.
Sure.
So the swamp is owned by the University of Montevallo, which is located about 6 miles away from here. And we use the swamp mostly for research purposes and to get familiar with the life that we have here and to study it with all the microorganisms that we have here and the endangered species that we have in the form of plant life and some animal life even. So the swamp is about 60 acres of land and wetlands that are contained all in this area, and we have a boardwalk up ahead that will be that will lead us through the majority of the area that we're in.
It feels so nice out here. I'm not gonna lie.
Yes.
Because it was so cold recently, and it got hot, and it's currently November, and it's like 75 degrees.
Yeah, it is. I think that the canopy up above helps a lot with the heat. It's a lot hotter in the pasture than it is over here.
Definitely.
So up ahead we have a few sculptures that you can see. These sculptures are actually made by young students back in 2010. They were art students that were commissioned by the university, and I can tell you their names. So Rosalie Holcomb, Jim Smith, and Kristen Bowman in 2010 were the students that were selected and their art pieces that were selected to present here. They went to local scrap yards and bought scrap metal from those areas and formed these sculptures for us. And the 3 that we have in the swamp represent the biodiversity and 3 of the most common animals and insects that you'll see in the area. Over here we have our outdoor classroom, which we often use for environmental education purposes. Our environmental education purpose at the University of Montevallo helps us with having field trips for students and for K through 12 students to come through and learn about the swamp and learn about a lot of the processes that go on in the swamp, such as the adaptation cycles and water cycles that happen in the area. So it's a really good hands-on resource for people to use. So if you'll follow me, we can walk through the boardwalk.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, and I hope the audience can hear it, but I feel like we're hearing a lot of nature noises happening. Could you kind of tell us, like, common animal or, like, nature noises that you'd hear while you're out here at the swamp?
Absolutely. If you want to take like a few seconds, we can just listen for a second and you'll hear some things. So you can hear a few birds and you can hear a few insects going on in the area. We have very common birds like robins and blue jays that you may see, mockingbirds that you may hear. We have lots of insects like dragonflies, and we'll see this dragonfly up ahead. That is one of our sculptures that was students made. Some of the animal life that you'll see in the swamp are beavers, which terrorize the area a little bit and will clean out some dams that they make. You'll see basic average squirrels and, as I mentioned before, grapefruit heron family can be seen here oftentimes. There are also snakes and rattlesnakes, water moccasins that can be found in the area. So we do have to be careful as we walk along the boardwalk, just being aware of our surroundings and making sure that we're not disturbing any animals and they're not disturbing us.
It's very peaceful.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
So if you look around, you can see that there are like higher levels of water in some areas and lower levels of water in others. This happens seasonally, and it also happens just because of the amount of rain that we get in some areas. Sometimes the water washes away a little bit more in certain areas, so the water is a bit deeper, or it may be shallower in some areas and a little bit more muddy, looking more like the swamp would.
We'll stop here. Would you tell us about what makes Ebenezer Swamp a swamp and what defines a swamp?
Absolutely. So the swamp is a wetland, and the wetland is just a mixture of soil and water, and shallower areas and deeper areas, and also the biodiversity in the area that creates what a swamp would be. So our swamp exists in Cahaba River watershed, and it actually exists as its own sub-watershed. And that watershed exists over an aquifer, an underground aquifer, and that aquifer feeds into the swamp through the streams and creeks that you can see. There's running water over here that you can see, and if you look into the water, sometimes you'll see these little geyser-like structures that are actually where you can see the aquifer bleeding in or seeping into the swamp. So it's very important that we keep the services that we have. As you noticed, there was a field out in the beginning, and there are plots of land that are more open and less taken up by wood and trees and such, and those are our important services because those are the surfaces that allow water to seep through. So when it rains, we're able to have water seep through those areas and recharge the aquifer that feeds the swamp. If we didn't have those plots of land, if they were covered by impervious surfaces like concrete or cement or roadways, then the rainwater wouldn't be able to seep through into the aquifer, and so it would eventually lead to the swamp drying out or the creek dry.
And would you correct me if I'm wrong, but are the surrounding areas referred to as the wetlands?
Yes. So the areas that you see here and the 60 acres all consist of wetlands.
Okay, thank you.
So as we go through the boardwalk, there are a bunch of benches that you can see where you can sit and you can enjoy the area. People can come out here to study or just to make the observations that I mentioned earlier for research purposes. It's a very nice area to come to if you ever just want to be in your natural surroundings and in your natural wildlife.
It always blows my mind when I'm out here how many trees are here.
Yeah.
There are so many. And this is not what you see like daily on the daily
Yeah. If you look over here, you can see actually one of the dams that the beavers set up. You can see the tree line that's on the ground or in the water. That is from the beavers that are here in the area.
Have you ever seen a beaver out here?
I have not seen a beaver at this point. I think it would be a really cool experience, but they tend to hide. I believe that beavers are crepuscular, so they are most active during morning, like dawn hours and dusk.
I remember hearing about how the swamp holds a lot of migrating birds throughout the migration season. Could you tell us anything about that?
Sure. I don't know too much about bird life that is here in the swamp, but I do know that because the swamp exists the way that it does, it changes less in terms of weather patterns seasonally. So it's able to absorb some of the shock of thunderstorms and things like that. So it's a great place for birds to come into existence during their migration patterns. And also because of the insect life that you can see, it just has a really good food source. So if we come over here, this is the first observation deck. So the observation deck is just another place that we can sit and we can observe the wildlife that exists around us. For students, it is a great study spot. For researchers, it's a great place to see whatever we may be researching, whether it be bird behavioral patterns or insect patterns in terms of where they're more common or where they can be found more. And we see a lot of trees around us. An example of those trees, the most common tree in the area is the tupelo gum, and you can see it right here standing tall. On the ground around us, we have our little seeds that come from the actual tree, and those are our tupelo gums. So we can walk on this way and keep going down the boardwalk.
I'm just gonna walk area. I have a question.
Absolutely.
Have you ever seen or heard of or participated in a study that happens out here, or maybe like how it's different ways of use in the department?
Absolutely. So I haven't personally participated in any studies. I do know, like specifically, there is a class at Montevallo that a lot of Bachelor of Science students may have to take. It's ecology, and we'll do field research where we will either have a controlled experiment where we plant plants in a greenhouse, but a lot of people will do, field research where they'll go out and observe a natural area like this. And I know the swamp has been used multiple times to just study the amount of the different types of species that we have in the area, the microorganisms that we have here, and just getting good numbers on that, as well as testing the water levels both in the swamp and in the creeks that surround us, and in the sub-watershed that is the swamp, as well as Cahaba River watershed.
And I know people talk about the beavers as like a keystone species.
Absolutely.
Can you explain like what that is and why they're important?
So, I really can't. I'm sorry. I can't get too far into that. I wouldn't want to give too much information on something I'm not super educated on. But as you can see within the swamp, there are different variations of land. This looks very grassy and looks more like a lawn that you would see, or like in the woods. And then as it opens up more, it becomes more like that wetland that we're used to seeing with the murkier and shallower waters that have some grass life in it, but not much. So since the swamp is such a enclosed location, it kind of helps with having multiple examples of what a wetland can look like in one smaller area.
Do we want to stop right here and show them the aquifers? That's what's happening.
Absolutely. If we walk a little bit further, I know that we can find a specific area that we can see where the water is coming up from the aquifer into the swamp. To our left is another observation deck that goes down a little bit further. So if you come to the swamp, you're welcome to stop by and see it. It's a very beautiful, beautiful area, as much as it is.
You want to stop here?
Right up here.
Okay.
Can't find it actually. Maybe a little bit further down. But if you look over, you can see a bunch of the fish, and if you look in the sand, you're likely to see a little geyser-like object in the water that just looks like it's spurting some water into the body of water.
It's right there.
Yes, I see it right in the corner. So it looks like it's rippling. That is actually where the water is coming up from the aquifer into the actual swamp and feeding into it.
Could you explain to our audience what the importance of aquifers are?
Absolutely. So aquifers are the underground sources that that feed into our watershed, our water sources. Without an aquifer, we wouldn't actually have these big bodies of water that exist. They feed into our streams, which all run down into the watershed, into our rivers that run down to the watershed. And so without those aquifers and without recharging them, which is so necessary, we wouldn't be able to have the water that we have. We wouldn't be able to have access to it. And for many people who may have wells or drink out of private wells, then without the aquifer, they wouldn't be able to access that any longer. So it's very important that we keep those structures as safe as we can. As we get closer to the end here, I hope that you learned a lot about Ebenezer Swamp. I hope you have a desire to come and visit it yourself. The swamp is a very, very important area for us and for the students, as well as for the citizens of Alabaster and just residents nearby who want to experience the area. So I hope that you enjoyed your tour and hope that you would like to come see it. So if you would like to come see the swamp, the address is 1271 Stagecoach Road, Alabaster, Alabama. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
That was good.